Okay, we're live.
Okay, so thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, and congratulations on publishing Data Detectives. I thought it was really engaging, and it makes the world of data feel really exciting and understandable, especially for younger readers. So I really liked how you used real-world examples, ethical questions, and storytelling to make difficult topics come to life. And I'm excited to hear more about how you made the book, what you hope it will do for readers, and your thoughts on the future of data literacy.
All right, thank you so much for having us.
Okay, so do you want to start? So first, what inspired the idea behind Data Detectives, and why did you choose to write it for the middle school audience?
Yeah, great question. So essentially, we were inspired to write data detectives because we kept seeing how much kids interact with each other just using technology every day. So whether it was asking a smart speaker for the weather, watching YouTube, kids are just surrounded by AI and data, but many of them don't really know how these things work. And this made us essentially think, what if we could explain these ideas in a way that's fun, easy, and exciting? So we picked middle schoolers because this is such a curious and creative age, and you're starting to ask big questions and just explore new ideas, but you can still enjoy stories, games, and activities. So this was the perfect mix for a book that we created. We didn't want it to feel like regular schoolwork, and we want it to feel like an adventure where essentially the reader becomes a data detective and learns how to solve these mysteries through these activities that we planned at the end of every chapter.
Nice. Okay, what were the biggest challenges that you faced while writing Data Detectives?
That's a great question. One of the biggest challenges, at least in my opinion, was definitely taking complicated ideas and making them simple and easy to understand. Topics like machine learning and synthetic data can sound confusing, especially if someone has never heard of them before. So me and Isha worked hard to make sure the content was easy to understand, but at the same time, we didn't want to overwhelm the readers with too much information or use long, tricky words. The goal was to strike a balance, keeping things smart and accurate, at the same time making sure that everything stayed fun and easy to follow. So we had to slow down and think carefully and how we're going to explain each topic. We used relatable examples like classroom situations or things from social media to help show how data really works in real life. We also shared the chapters with middle schoolers to make sure that everything made sense, felt fun, and also kept everything interesting. Their feedback helped us improve the book, and we made sure that we're speaking their language. Another challenge was keeping the tone just right. We wanted the book to be friendly and exciting while still teaching important ideas. That took a lot of rewriting, brainstorming, and creativity. But at the end, we're really proud of how our book turned out.
Very nice. So the book uses a storytelling approach to teach data literacy. So how did you come up with this method, and what impact do you think it has on learning?
So definitely we chose storytelling because it's essentially the way that people have shared knowledge for years. And thinking about my favorite books, movies, or shows, I remember them because of the story associated. So similarly, me and Rima thought, why not teach data in that same way? When we use these stories, the children feel connected because they're not just reading facts, but they're following a journey. For example, like the beginning of the story illustrates how natural AI has become an integral part of like a character's daily life, and it makes learning feel real and not like reading a textbook. So we also use activities, quizzes, mini challenges throughout the book to keep the learning hands-on. That way the kids aren't just reading about data, but they're using it, thinking it, and then also they're playing with it just because of all the activities that we have planned. So stories and all the fun make the information stick better and inspire kids to keep asking questions and continue to grow their curiosity.
Nice. So you explore a wide range of topics from privacy to algorithms and big data. Which one tends to spark the most curiosity or questions from the students?
This is a really good question. So, kids are always fascinated by how apps know everything that they want to watch and listen to. As soon as we start talking about Netflix or TikTok or YouTube and how they give suggestions to us, hands always go up. Everyone wants to know, how does it know me so well? That leads to big conversations about recommendation systems and personal data. One time, a student even asked, is there a tiny robot living inside my phone and telling the apps what I like? This was such a fun question and honestly not that far off. That gave us the perfect chance to explain how data is collected, how patterns are tracked, and how computers learn what we enjoy based on what we click or watch. Another topic that really grabs attention is facial recognition. Many students or kids use Face ID on their phones, so they ask things like, is it safe, or what if it doesn't recognize me? It's exciting to explain how computers look at tiny patterns on our face and turn that into data that they can actually understand. These everyday moments help kids realize that AI and data are not just tools for adults, but that it's also part of their life too. And once they see that, their curiosity really takes off.
Nice. So, one chapter discusses data doubles and online identity. Why is it important for kids to understand this concept early on?
Yeah, this is a really good question. So essentially, your data double is like a digital version of yourself, and it's made from everything that you do online. So what you click, what you like, what you search, and even how long you stay on a page. So even if someone doesn't post a lot, their online actions kind of create a shadow that a lot of companies can see. And we believe it's important for everyone to understand this early because you're growing up in a digital world. So the more you know about like your data being collected and used, the better you can protect yourself. And it's essentially not about kids being scared, it's about being smart with their online choices. If you want to learn early on that data has value, you can ask better questions like, why does this app want my location? Or even, should I click this ad or should I engage in this kind of media? So being aware of your digital identity helps make better choices and also keeps you safer in the future. So essentially, you're not being tracked by all these national companies on a international scale.
I agree. Okay, so the book includes real-world scenarios like medical diagnosis, facial recognition, and social media. How did you decide which examples to include?
So we picked examples that kids already know and care about. If we talk about TikTok, Face ID, or games like Minecraft, we know that kids will connect right away. These are things that they already use, so it makes learning much more natural, fun, and also relatable at the same time. But we also wanted to show the bigger picture, where all of this knowledge can be used. That's why we included examples like data in hospitals for climate change or how to help scientists solve serious problems. We wanted kids to see that data isn't just about entertainment, but it could save lives, protect the planet, and also make the world a better place. We tried to balance everyday examples with real world impact. That way, readers can imagine using data not just for fun things, but also to do something meaningful and amazing in the future.
Okay, so were any of the stories in the book based on any personal experiences?
Yeah, definitely. So some of the stories in the book come straight from my own experiences, and I'm sure Rima can say the same. But when I tried talking to my Alexa for the first time, it felt like having a conversation with like a robot from the future or even my Google Home. And I asked it to play my favorite song, and when it did, I couldn't stop smiling. So moments like that, when technology almost feels magical, is what inspired me to write this book. And other stories that have been based on things with teaching, tutoring, or essentially just working with kids. And we took these real moments and turned them into fun, helpful examples that make this learning feel real. So that's one of the favorite parts of our book because it's based on real curiosity, real joy, and also real moments.
I agree. So, why do you believe that data science is such a critical skill for middle and high schoolers in today's world?
So, data is part of everything now. It's in apps we use, the games we play, the ads we see, and even the way we learn at school. If kids don't understand how data works, they might miss important details or even get tricked by what they see online. But when we do understand data, we can ask better questions, solve real world problems, and also make smarter choices. And now, data science and artificial intelligence, as everyone knows, AI, are coming together more than ever now. AI uses data to learn, make decisions, or improve over time. The more the data it gets, the smarter it becomes. That's why recommendation systems, voice assistants, and even things like self driving cars are improving so quickly. AI is growing fast, and it's growing faster than most people expect. And it's becoming a big part of how the world works today. This means that learning about data isn't just a good idea, but something that can really shape the future. Whether someone wants to be a doctor, a teacher, a video game designer, or something entirely different. Understanding how data and AI can help them could be really helpful for their future. These tools can be something we could be used to create, explore, and even protect people and the planet. The world is changing fast, and AI is helping lead the way. By learning how data works early on, kids can feel ready and confident. It's kind of like learning a superpower. Once you understand how it works, you can start using it to do amazing things, solve problems, and even help others.
Yes. So, what do you hope that young readers take away from this book, not just intellectually, but also ethically and socially?
I would say we hope readers don't just learn about how data and AI work, they also think about how we use them. So technology is powerful, but with this power comes great responsibility. And we want kids to ask, is this app fair? Is it safe for everyone? And is this tool helping people or hurting them? These questions help build not just smart thinkers, but also kind and caring people. And we want young readers to be curious, but also thoughtful so they can dream big, but they should also care about others. And if they learn how to use data in ways that are fair, helpful, and kind, they can essentially just create a better future for everyone involved.
So, how did your own background in writing or computer science influence your approach to this project?
Definitely. For me, I grew up in a house where computer science was a part of daily life. So both of my parents are both software engineers, so I was always hearing about things like coding, problem solving, big data, and technology from a very young age. At first, I fully didn't understand what they were talking about, but it made me really curious. I wanted to learn more and understand how computers really work. As I got older, I started studying computer science more seriously. I completed multiple certifications in computer science and tech-related subjects, including artificial intelligence, data science, and programming. These experiences gave me a strong understanding about how data, algorithms, and AI work in real life. But sometimes it was really confusing for me to actually understand all the programming languages there are and everything else. So I thought, why not write a book and make it simpler for middle schoolers and high schoolers to learn? So we used data detectives to make sure that computer science was easy to learn for all kids of any age.
Were there any topics that you found difficult to explain in simpler terms, and how did you overcome that if there was?
There were definitely topics that gave us a challenge, and one of the hardest things was probably explaining machine learning, especially the idea that a computer can learn by looking at lots of data, even though it doesn't have a brain like many humans do. So, to make that idea clear, we had to find the right comparison. We finally just said, let's compare it to a kid studying for a test. So, when you look at lots of practice problems and figure out the answers, you get better over time. And that's what a computer does. It looks at a lot of examples and then just gets better solving similar problems later on. Another tricky topic was big data. And this idea of having huge amounts of data, like billions of photos or millions of texts, it can feel too big of a picture. So we used fun examples like all the data created during a space mission or how scientists track animals in the world for kids to understand at a smaller like point or at a smaller example. And we learned that the best way to explain big ideas was to break them down into small everyday things. We used puzzles, drawings, games, and even real life moments to help these lessons stick. And it took time, but we rewrote many pages more than once, and we kept testing it with middle schoolers. And this essentially helped us find the right tone and the right words.
Okay. And lastly, do you have a plan to have a sequel or additional books to continue the mission of Data Detectives?
Yes, in the near future, we're definitely hoping to write more books. Working on data detectives was just the beginning. This book touched a lot of exciting topics like AI, data science, machine learning, and more. But next time, we want to go even deeper. Instead of covering everything in one book, our goal is to focus on specific topics and really dig into them. For example, we might do an entire book on just generative AI, or one about data privacy and safety online. That way, readers can get a better understanding of each idea. We want to explain things thoroughly, using more stories, examples, and hands on activities. Our goal is to make sure that readers not only understand the topic, but also feel confident talking about it and even teaching it in real life. So, yes, more adventures are on the way, and we're really excited to keep on exploring the world of data and AI, one piece at a time.
That sounds really interesting. Can't wait for that. So, do you have any questions?
Magna, actually, we heard that you also wrote a book called Felix and all his Science Adventures, Discovering How the World Works. So we're wondering if we could ask you some questions on that.
Oh, yeah, of course. I'd love to answer.
So the first question is, Why did you decide to teach science through a story instead of just facts and diagrams? Did Felix and Olive come to you right away?
Good question. So I've always believed that stories help kids remember things better. So facts and diagrams are useful, but when you wrap them in an adventure with characters that you care about, the science sticks better. And I wanted two friends who were curious about the world, and Felix and Olive felt like the perfect team to explore and explain science together.
Okay, interesting. So, how did you choose which topics you wanted to include, like senses, the life cycles, and even energy that is written throughout your book?
So I picked topics that I thought were both important and exciting for kids. So things like the senses or life cycles are part of everyday life, so kids can connect what they learn to what they see around them. Energy is more abstract, but it's everywhere, and I wanted to show how it connects to living things.
Oh, thank you so much for your answer. The chapter on five senses was so fun, in my opinion. Why do you think it's important for kids to learn about how senses work?
Great question. So, our senses show how we experience the world, and there are connections to everything around us. So, I think that understanding them helps kids appreciate how amazing their bodies are and also take better care of themselves.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And then in the human body systems section, you introduced Dr. Ben, but we see characters more like him in other chapters.
Yes, for sure. I think having different guides makes each topic feel fresh. Dr. Ben brings a friendly expert voice to the human body systems, and I'd love to add more characters like that to other science areas, maybe a botanist for plants or an astronaut for space.
Continuing on from that question, my favorite character in the book was definitely Bella, the butterfly, and she was saying that she tastes with her feet. So, how do you decide which fun facts to include so kids remember them?
I try to use facts that make kids stop and say, like, wait, really? And if it's unusual but easy to imagine, like a butterfly tasting with its feet, it's more likely to stick in their memory. I think about whether it's the kind of thing they'd be excited to share with their friends or family later.
And then adding on to Rima's question, the frog cycle was also really detailed. Why did you choose to include frogs as a comparison to butterflies?
Frogs and butterflies both go through big transformations, but in very different ways. So comparing them helps kids see that the life cycle can mean many different things, and it also makes them notice patterns and differences in nature.
Thank you so much for your answer. So, in the insect chapter, was a bit creepy, but it was really helpful at the same time. But how do you decide which insect to use as the guide for each section?
So I think, for example, I use grasshoppers. So grasshoppers are easy to recognize and have clear features like strong back legs for jumping that make them a good example for explaining insect anatomy. Plus, they're active and interesting, which makes them fun to follow as a guide.
Yeah, that's really creative. And then why do you think it's important for kids to understand things like exoskeletons and molting, even if they seem a little complicated?
Good question. So, I do think it's good for kids to stretch their understanding a bit. Learning about exoskeletons and molting gives them a glimpse into how different life forms solve problems like protection and growth. And even if the words are new, the concepts can spark curiosity.
All right, thank you so much. There are a lot of scientific words, but they're all explained in really unique and simple ways. What's your secret to make science easy and fun for all kids?
Well, I imagine explaining it to my younger cousins or a friend who's never heard of it before. I break the word down, use comparisons, and tie it to something familiar. The goal is for the kids to say, oh, I get it now, or oh, that's not too hard.
And then just out of curiosity, did you have a favorite science topic from the book or one that you loved researching about the most?
I think my favorite topic was human anatomy. I've always been curious about all how all the systems in our body work together to keep us alive like a perfectly coordinated team. And researching it felt like solving a puzzle, and I love figuring out how to explain complex things like the circulatory or nervous system in a way that younger kids could understand and get excited about.
Thank you so much. This is the final question, but what kind of adventures do you think Olive and Felix will go on next? Will they explore even more areas of science?
Definitely. I'd love for them to explore space, oceans, or even microscopic worlds. There's so much left to discover, and Felix and Olive are just getting started on their adventures.
All right, thank you so much. That's the end of our interview. So
Yes,
That
thank you.
seems